Here we are again. Continuing the series of yarns with our elders on education and their journeys with education. And I'm here this afternoon with Arnie Sue. Arnie, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
My official name or
However you want to introduce yourself.
Sue Folland. Yeah. I don't belong to Bunjalung. My dad's people came from Waka Waka.
Waka Waka.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my great grandmother was a tribal woman, and her name was Yargon.
Yargon.
Yeah, and she came from, would you believe, Blackbutt Mountains, up near Toowoomba.
Not that way. Yeah.
So I never do welcomes or...
No, that's okay. That's really good. Where's Waka Waka? Where are they?
Up Toowoomba, Darling, Dalby.
Oh, up okay, up on the
table. And it comes
tablelands.
back over almost to the coast, but not
quite. Oh, good. Well, that's good. So, like me, you're off country.
Even though I was born here.
Yes. We're here today. We're talking about education and your journey with education. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your experiences with education?
Well, can I start by saying that Mum and Dad, we lived here at Tweed.
Yep.
And then they took us down to Mullumbimby because they wanted us to have a good education. And we were told we weren't going to leave school unless we passed the leaving certificate.
Oh.
And there was 9 of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way we could get out of it was get a proper job. And that didn't mean labouring.
Now, I was going to say, what does it mean, a proper job?
Anything that you've got to have an education behind you. And at the time, lucky for me, nursing was only, you could go in at after 3 years at high school. And
Okay, so
I didn't like school.
So you didn't get your leaving, but you went into a nursing job.
Yeah.
Went into nursing.
Yeah.
So you continued your education though.
Oh yes,
in medicine or that health area.
Yeah, 4 years as a nurse. Back in those days.
Yeah.
And you'd go and do blocks, 2-week blocks every 3 months.
Okay.
But the whole family, sister was the first Aboriginal woman to work on the Melbourne Telephone Exchange. My brother, Bobby, was he was in the Navy for 9 years. Then he got out and he seen the Redfern mess. So he became a lawyer and ended up a judge. Then there was myself. I just stayed in health.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one was a bricklayer. Sister, her main claim to fame was that she was a mother of triplets. First one's born here in the Tweed.
Oh, wow.
But she also was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And then another sister was a radiographer. Solly, well, what would you call Solly? No, he skipped school and went to Sydney and become an activist and helped set up the AMS and the legal service.
Oh, okay.
But he was an activist first. Went over to America with the Black Panthers for a while.
Panthers, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next brother, he was a fitter and turner, but also an activist. And then my sister, younger sister, she's the CEO of the Redfern AMS.
Wow.
So I think mother and father achieved their
I'd say they've very much achieved their goal.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's good. So you went into health and have been in health nearly all your life?
Yes. Yes.
So
Up
what's
until I
that
retired.
what's that journey been
Okay.
like? What was that journey like for you?
For me, it was good. There was only one person that I could say was a little bit up your nose. Oh, sorry. But she was an old matron
Yeah.
and didn't want anything to do with me. And I just said to the sisters in charge, no, let me go there. Either she'll break me or I'll break her. Guess who won? Yeah, so, you know, I'd go in to give her a medication and turn away. And then she'd complain if I had to give her a bed bath. But, you know, you get over those things. Oh, well, I did. Some people don't. But I love nursing.
Yes. My family's all nurses except me.
Yeah, well, in our family we've got law because of the grandkids. The grandkids and the nieces are into law now. I think we've got 2 that are doing law. And then we've got 5 in health.
Wow.
So, and we've got 3 in education. So they're following in the footsteps.
And that's really an important story to tell that many of our young people that are coming to university at Southern Cross are first in family, so that none of their family have had the opportunity of coming to university. So it's really exciting to hear a story where we've got people who are older generation who have been to university and then their kids have gone in.
Yeah.
And probably grandkids as well.
Well, they are. I've got 2 that are just starting their nursing careers now.
Wow.
Only back in April they started.
So where are they studying their nursing?
Here at, well, they're doing it at TAFE,
Oh, okay.
and they're going to do it through, finish up doing it through the hospital.
Yep. These days, nursing education would be very different to when you went through.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've got a daughter who's a registered nurse.
Yeah. Be very different to the way she went through as well.
Yes, well, she's coming around to my way of thinking that it's better to do your nurses training on site,
Yes.
in the hospitals,
Yes.
rather than sitting in a, sorry, Stuart, but sitting in a classroom.
I agree with you. I think there are some forms of education that are best hands-on, and you can't. You can read about how to stop someone's bleeding, but when it's happening in front of you, you've got to figure it out pretty quick.
Yes.
So and Indigenous knowledge is a very experiential learning as well, the way we do it.
Yeah.
So I actually agree. I don't think that particularly those types of practical skills can actually be learnt in a book or in a classroom on dummies.
Yes, that's right. I totally agree.
So that's okay. Yeah. Education will go back to the way it should be eventually, I think.
I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime.
I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's going that way quicker than we think.
I hope so. But anyway.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And it's in education, got a sister who's in as a teacher.
Yep.
But I think it's all different. Again, it's different to our, and I suppose it's just got to change. Like from how teachers were when I went through. That's nearly 60 years ago.
Well, everything's changed in 60
Yeah.
years. And not all for the good. It's just changed.
Yeah.
But so with the change in education, because you've been able to see what it was like for you when you went through, and then comparing it to your children and grandchildren and how they're learning, education's changing a lot.
Yes.
How do you see that as
I guess nowadays there's more technical stuff that goes on within the hospitals. I'm talking about nursing.
yes?
There's a lot of technical stuff that goes on that we didn't have.
No.
So there's the good and bad in the new stuff and the old, but I suppose I'm still too stuck in my ways to say no.
So have you always been in a hospital situation, or have you worked
No,
in...
I did 30 years at community health,
Okay.
and I did 3 years in the army.
Wow. As a nurse?
Yes.
Yes.
No, well, I finished off my training in the army.
Oh, okay.
Only because the matron and I had a fight, and I said, well, I won't say on camera what I... We had an argument, and I said, no, I'll be leaving.
Yep.
So then I went and worked in a nursing home for a while until my papers come through to go into the army. So I finished off my nursing in there.
So where were you based?
Ingleburn in Sydney,
Oh, down in Sydney. Yep.
but it's closed down.
Yeah. Ingleburn's all houses now. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, things change, and I guess you got to change with the times.
Yeah. Was culture talked about much in your family?
Not a great lot, just only the things that, like, if we did anything wrong, then Mother would put her, because she was South Sea Island,
Mm-hmm.
so I had the two.
Yeah.
Mother would come with her views on how we should be acting, and Father said, no, this is the way that it's done. And told Mother, she's living in Australia, not overseas anywhere.
Yep.
Even though she was born here. But yeah, not a great lot of the culture. We learnt that later on.
Yep.
There was
So
none in the school.
none in the school, no.
No.
So no. When you say you learnt that later on, where did you learn the cultural aspects of things?
When I started working in community health,
Okay. Yeah.
and I started off in the community health as a health worker, so we would go away on courses, and part of the course was Aboriginal health.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So the culture come out there. But up until then, we didn't have that much culture.
No.
But we knew who we were, where we were from.
Yeah. My sister, who's a nurse, and she's always been in the hospital system, still is now. She runs the hospital in Bathurst, but she was saying the same thing, that in the hospital system there's very little.
Very little. And I can recall going up to accident and emergency one day, and there was this New Zealander nurse, And he said to me, he said, is there anything cultural I should be aware of? And I just looked at him. You're the first one to ever ask me that question. But I did impart part of the, like men's business, women's business, and that he was to be very careful of how he treated a woman. And he said, that surprises me. He said, in New Zealand, he said, we practice it all the time. But that was the first time he'd heard anything about the culture.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at the health system in New Zealand, and when we talk about cultural competency and all of those sorts of things, that came from New Zealand. So they sort of started to design that whole cultural competency process,
Yeah.
and particularly in the health area, in the area of health and how we deal with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our health system.
But yeah, but learning the culture, it was not a. It came through well, like I said before, all the courses that we'd go away at conferences.
Yeah. And that's perfectly fine and valid, and that's where a lot of us do learn stuff.
Yeah.
Particularly here on the East Coast. We've been hit pretty hard with through the colonisation process.
Yeah. But having said that, to me, except for that one lady, when I was doing my nurses training, did I feel that I was, I don't know what you'd say, felt that you were something different? I was treated the same as everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Except for when I was in the army, one of the girls asked me, how come you got so black? And I said, oh, when I was a baby, Mum stripped me off and threw me out the beach. And that seemed to have broken down a lot of barriers.
Yeah.
Being able to laugh at myself.
Yeah, and that's important. My sister says the same thing, that she was treated the same as everybody else.
But then I've never moved away from the country. Got to Sydney, where the brothers and sister lived, because they were right in the midst of it. And
Yeah.
because Brother Bob, who was the judge, he could see that a lot of the Aboriginal people down there how they were being treated. A little bit different.
Yep.
To what it was up here. I'm not saying that it wasn't up here.
No, it was. Yeah, and I would suggest that it was different in different industries.
Yeah.
And different places would have different ways of dealing with each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have gone into community nursing, and you were doing that for a long time before you retired.
Yes. Well, I ended up managing, gave up the hands-on stuff.
Yep.
But doing, but the managerial stuff. And I think that's where I've seen a lot of differences. That because I had a staff of 15 Aboriginal people under me. And yes, you pick up a lot of differences between the different cultures. I mean, Aboriginal cultures.
Yes. There's some, everybody tries to treat us like the same, but we're all very different.
Oh yes. Very different.
Yes.
But you've got to learn that to acknowledge the differences and work with them.
There's lots of strength in those differences.
Yes. And what you bring to the table.
That's right. So, in your role as a manager in that space, were you able to do some training or impartation of what you had learnt over the years for some of these
We
younger
used to
ones?
have, every 6 months we do cultural awareness programs for both the staff and also for community. And one of the ladies that you had on here this morning, Auntie Ruth, she'd been with us all the way through with it.
Okay.
She'd come in and, and share stories. And I think, there's no big cultural thing, because we don't live in a cultural world.
No, that's true.
And but people just tell them their stories about how they were brought up, how they lived, where they were from. And I think, like that just, it gels with everyone. Because everyone, like you said earlier, has a different story.
And it's those different stories that are important for people to hear.
Yeah, well, I think if you want to provide a service to a community group, then you've got to know what you're dealing with, how to deal with it, and respect where they're coming from, whether you agree with it or not. You've got to, there are things you can't accept, but the cultural side of things, you've got to accept their views.
Yeah, agreed. It's and that's really important, that we look and that we understand and we accept. Because one of the things that we're trying to teach our young people is about the respecting people.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really important. As we, you've been involved with the Ginibi Elders now for a little while.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your involvement and what got you involved and why you think your involvement's important?
Why do I think it's important? I think that, I won't get political, I was just going to do that, but I won't. I like the way that Ginibi has been given the elders the opportunity to voice their opinions, what they like about what's going on at Ginibi, or what we don't like about Ginibi.
Yep.
But at least we're being given a voice. And that's as far as I go with the political bit. Because that's the same as with culture. You've got to respect people's views on everything, including politics.
Yes.
Especially when you come from a political family.
Bunch of activists, yeah. Well, I think the role that Ginibi Elders play, not only for Ginibi but for the university as a whole, is extremely important.
It is.
As part of our governance process. And when the elders, you guys, tell us that you don't like something, we do everything we possibly can to change it.
And we don't do that very often,
Oh,
do we?
no. But when you do, it's really important.
Yeah.
And it's important that we hear that.
And it's also a place where a group of elders can get together to try and help people that are coming through the university, that they know that there's a group there that will keep an eye out for them.
Yeah. I love just sitting in the room when you guys get together. Just listening to your stories and listening to the way you communicate with each other, and and that sort of stuff. It's
And there's been a lot of friendships developed.
absolutely.
Some people you, but you still got to respect them. You mightn't like what they say, but that's fine.
Yeah, well, we don't get along with everybody all the time.
That's for sure. Like me and my brothers didn't.
Families especially.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So is there anything else that you would like to say or add to your conversation?
No, but this place over here, Midjumble Museum, used to use that a lot
Mm-hmm.
in our cultural awareness programs.
Okay.
And we used to do that to all the community health staff.
Mm-hmm.
Bring them over here and listen to elders' stories and ask questions like, what can we do better
Mm.
from a community health point of view? But I do believe that there's not enough culture taught to the nursing staff or hospital staff.
My sister would agree with you. But it's changing. As the government starts to realise the areas that are lacking, we're starting to see changes in those educational processes. It's slowly. They don't want to rush anything. But yeah.
But I think for me, I notice that parents have got to take more responsibility of keeping their children at school, encouraging them to be at school.
Well, part of these conversations that we're having with all the elders is about trying to help encourage people to stay with education as much as we can.
And that's important. If we want to keep growing as a nation, but also as a culture, we've got to be educated.
Well, my parents and grandparents used to say education was power.
I think my parents would agree with you.
And although I initially balked at education, but it was later in life that I went back. But they would.
Yeah. Well, the other thing when I was at school, the other thing that I really enjoyed was the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I stayed at school for that long for. Because I used to be good at sports.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a mad rugby league supporter.
I think we all are.
Yay. Go the Blues.
Oh well.
Don't tell me you're a flaming
No,
maroon.
I'm a Blues supporter.
Oh,
New South Wales through and through. I believe blue blood.
But if you look at the number of Aboriginal people that are in the sports today.
Well, it's been interesting just watching the Dream Round, or the Dreamtime Round in AFL, and we've just had Indigenous Round NRL, and they've highlighted just in those two sports the Indigenous players over the last few weeks, and that's been fairly
Even though
exciting.
they don't highlight it, but there's a lot in netball,
Oh, absolutely.
rugby union.
Yes. All of the sports we play just about everything. I think. I don't think there's many sports that we're not involved in, and we had young Barty as the
Ash
Ash as the
and Yvonne.
and Yvonne, in tennis and
But it's also a way to keep kids at school and get them education and further education.
yes.
A lot of those boys that are playing rugby league they'll come out of there with some kind of education or
That's true, and you've got a number of foundations that promote sport and education. So they take the cream players from inland Australia and Northern Territory and northern Western Australia and bring them down to the cities where they give them education and they promote their sporting prowess so that they end up with things. And the Yellow Boys are a classic example of that, of how that worked. There's some tremendous opportunities available.
exactly. Yes.
And the new scholarship programs that we've started at the university here help with that as well. So help to promote education and provide opportunities for our people, our young people, to come and study and to practice some sport. We've got partnerships developing with the local football club and the university through our sports science labs and that sort of stuff, are really helping our local teams build and promote. And
Yep. And I was just thinking then that when we was growing up, we lived at New Brighton and Billy Nudgel. You know where that is, just down there.
Yeah.
And the track that the Richmond people, the Lismore area, they used to come through, and they used to always call in home. and I suppose that's one way of culture, passing on culture. They used to come up, call in home, and Mum would have a feed ready for them, and then they'd come on up here to the Tweed.
Yep. Yeah. Used to happen down home as well. We had people drop through as they were going north.
Yeah, because you, whenever someone called to your house, it was always either a cup of tea or, as usual, round about meal times, they'd drop in, so Mother would have to, add more to the pot or...
Yes, I used to have a talent for dropping in at meal times.
But yeah, growing up with 8 other siblings wasn't a problem for Mother.
No, people that had big families could always find room for one more.
Yes.
I don't know how, but they always could.
Yeah, but it was always work. Father would, until he retired, he was never out of a job.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And Mum didn't, she didn't go out and get a job. Well, she had a job at home with 9 kids, didn't she?
I was going to say she already had a job.
But no, it was good. I had a good life.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
That's all right.